In the video today, I wanted to outline a safe, effective warm-up for the bench press. A well-structured warm-up will stimulate the agonists, antagonists, neutralizers, stabilizers, and better prepare them for the heavy session to come. Performing a warm-up is a simple way to create heat through metabolic activity, which will cause a physiological change in the connective tissue, making it more pliable and therefore more resilient to injury. So before I jump straight into the warm-up, just to give you a quick overview of what it entails. A warm-up should be made up of really three parts. The first part is what a lot of people would call the pulse raiser. The second part is a dynamic or non-specific warm-up, and then the third, final part of the warm-up is the specific warm-up. So in this video, I'm going to outline all the aspects of a warm-up, but we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the second part of the warm-up, the dynamic warm-up. This is simply because it's the least understood, and generally, if anything's going to be completely forgotten about, this will be it. And it has tons and tons of value when it comes to making informed choices whether or not you should or shouldn't train on the day. So if you find this information useful, please consider subscribing to my channel. Pulse raiser will generally be between 2 to 5 minutes. This can be performed on the rower, assault bike, pretty much anything that raises body temperature. Ideally, the movement being performed wants to target the joints that you're going to use in the specific warm-up. This will increase the synovial fluid and better prepare the joints for the heavy loads that you're about to perform. So after a brief pulse raiser, we'll go straight into the dynamic warm-up. The first movement that will be demonstrated is the dumbbell lat raise external rotator. This is a great movement for just increasing blood flow and warming up the shoulders as a whole. The external rotation aspect of the movement is going to help us prime up one of the key stabilizers when it comes to any horizontal abduction of the arms, basically benching. It's important to really target some of these smaller intrinsic muscles so that you get them fired up, ready for the heavy weights to follow. But again, it's really important that you don't pre-fatigue them. The goal is just to prime them up. So when it comes to the movements that I'm going to be showing you, you probably only want to be looking at doing 1 to 2 sets between 12 to 14 repetitions with 35 to 45 seconds rest and RPE easy. Here we have two-time British champion Pierre Shillingford demonstrating the dumbbell lat raise external rotator. Start this movement with the arms to the sides and the elbows bent at roughly 90 degrees. Once in the correct start position, simply raise the elbows laterally until both your hands and your elbows are perpendicular to the shoulder, no higher. Then perform a controlled external rotation at the humerus, and as you do so, externally rotate the hand, leaving the hands in a semi-supinated position and your forearms vertical. After which, simply reverse the steps back to your start position. The next movement I'm going to be demonstrating is the dumbbell trap 3. This exercise is really important because it targets a weak underused portion of the trapezius, the trap 3, which is going to affect how much you can depress the scapula. Now, because in a bench press, the bench itself creates a fixed scapular position, we've got to make sure that we've got those muscle groups that are going to help us create the best, most biomechanically efficient position primed up, ready to get ourselves set into positions of strength and efficiency and keep the shoulder safe. To start the bilateral dumbbell trap 3, set the bench up at roughly 30 degrees. Start with your hands angled out about 15 degrees, arms locked, hanging down forwards or vertical at the start position. Initiate the movement by retracting and depressing the scapula, after which you will raise your arms up and out slightly, keeping hands turned at 15 degrees. Try to achieve a good range of movement. You want your arms to be at least perpendicular to the body, after which simply lower the arms back to the initial start position, hanging down forwards or vertical. To get the full benefit of this movement, retract and depress the scapula between each rep. The next movement Pierre is going to be demonstrating is the unrolling dumbbell fly. This is a great movement to increase blood flow and prime up the pecs and delts for the upcoming press work. The unrolling dumbbell fly will take the pectoral musculature for a greater active range of movement than it will be exposed to in the bench press. I have found this very effective for offsetting the chances of re-injuring old pec tears. Start the movement simply by lying on the bench and adopting a pronated hand position with the elbows slightly bent, as you can see. The dumbbells should be centered roughly over the upper chest, ready to start the movement. Lower the arms down so the dumbbells are moving towards the head. At the bottom of the movement, the dumbbells should be roughly in line with the ears. After which, externally rotate the dumbbells, creating a small dynamic stretch of the pectoral musculature. The amount of external rotation will really depend on your mobility. All you're trying to achieve is a nice comfortable stretch, nothing too aggressive. After externally rotating the dumbbells, internally rotate the dumbbells back to the pronated position and return the dumbbells back to the start position over the chest. Okay, so Pierre's now going to be demonstrating the banded face pulls. You see a lot of people doing this one. It's very effective at targeting those antagonistic muscle groups that are going to be key when it comes to holding a good position in a bench. You're also going to find that it's going to hit stabilizers and neutralizers, which are also going to keep your shoulders in a safe, effective position. So we want to adopt a staggered stance, brace the core and lock in a neutral spine position. We then want to initiate the movement by pulling the bands apart and back towards the face while keeping the elbows relatively high. For best results, focus on retracting the scapula as much as possible on every rep. Okay, so the next movement that Pierre's going to be demonstrating is the Quadruped Reach through. This is a great movement for increasing thoracic mobility, and again, that's going to be super important when it comes down to benching. You want to try and get your chest as high as possible. You're trying to create the most biomechanically efficient position to recruit the most muscle through the shortest range of movement to lift the most weight possible. The goal here is to maintain a neutral spine while trying to reach through, then open up the chest as far as feels comfortable on each rep. Focus on trying to maintain the weight displacement relatively equally between the 3 points of contact with the floor. Okay, so the final dynamic movement we're going to be going through, or Pierre's going to be showing you, is the bench T-spine. This is a great movement for obviously improving thoracic mobility, which is super important when it comes to bench to create the best position, as I've just said. But also, it's going to give us a nice dynamic stretch through the lats and through the triceps. To perform the bench T-spine, simply start the movement by putting your elbows on the bench just in front of your head. You want to create a nice straight line from your head to your hips. Once you've done this, start to rock back, trying to get the butt as close to the heels while maintaining a relatively neutral spine. Remember, a neutral spine position is a range and some deviation is acceptable. To further increase the stretch, flex at the elbow as you rock back. At the end range of movement, simply exhale and let the rib cage drop towards the floor, after which start to rock back to your start position. Something to point out, all of the movements we've used in the dynamic warm-up are dissimilar to the main movement that we'll be performing, in this case the bench. This is to better offset any fatigue leaking into the main exercise. That's something that we'll do all the way through dynamic warm-ups. We're going to look at targeting the agonists, the antagonists, stabilizers, neutralizers, and even the joints themselves, but not in the same movement pattern. So again, we're avoiding any fatigue leaking into the main movement before we get into the specific warm-up itself. Remember, you don't need to do all of the movements that I've demonstrated. These are just the movements I found very effective for this athlete, that's all. By the end of the dynamic warm-up, you really shouldn't be feeling any aches and pains. In fact, if you are, this isn't something you should ignore. You should probably be doing a light session, more active recovery, or potentially having another day or two off so that you've recovered and you're not as beat up, to avoid potential injuries or just really bad sessions for that matter. Okay, so this is the third and final part of the warm-up, the specific warm-up. Again, I'm going to get Pierre to demonstrate that and I'm going to talk you through it. I will give you a rough outline of warming up for a particular weight and how to do that. Your goal here is to incrementally increase the load while decreasing the reps on each subsequent set. The initial sets with lighter loads under 65% will be very effective for increasing blood flow and priming up muscle fiber ready for the heavy warm-up sets to follow. As the loads increase, the rest period should also increase. This will better allow the neuromuscular system optimal recovery between warm-up sets. It is especially important that your rest periods exponentially increase when the loads are over 70% of your 1RM. I've uploaded an example of a lifter capable of 145 kilo 1RM, warming up to perform doubles at 130, which would roughly work out to be about 90% of their current 1RM. Points to remember: the general warm-up includes both the pulse raiser and the dynamic warm-up. So should only take between 12 to 15 minutes, so don't spend too long there. You don't want to pre-fatigue yourself before the specific warm-up itself.